Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to this morning's meeting of the Mojave County Board of Supervisors. We're going to start the meeting out with invocation by Pastor Mike Bell, and if you would remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Good morning. Let's pray. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who provides all we need and gives us the wisdom for the day. Father, I thank you for this council and its endeavor to operate this county. Give them the wisdom they need to run, improve, and regulate the operation of this great county. Bless all the county workers this day, too. Keep them safe from this oppressive heat, and bring the rain that we so desperately need to cool us and to fill our reservoirs. Bless us all this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. You'll join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Supervisors may, by motion, recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, A3, 4, and 7. Looking for a motion to call for an executive session to be held August 7th, 2023 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03, A3, 4, and 7 to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Official business to come before the board. Discussion of pending or contemplated litigation, claims, and demands. Attorney Esplin.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you. Committee and legislative reports. Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you and good morning. This past couple of weeks, I attended the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission meeting in Flagstaff and also the National Park Service public meeting in regards to the future of South Cove and Temple Bar in Mojave County.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus.
Nothing this morning.
Thank you. Supervisor Gould.
Nothing this morning, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Been working with Congress to get more support on banning Russian uranium. That's all.
Thank you. For the past couple of weeks, there's been a couple of things in the water area that I've been involved with. Went down to U of A, their water research center. They had a water conference last week. And then also the governor's Water Policy Council. They have two subcommittees. One is the Assured Water Supply Committee, one is the Rural Groundwater Committee. I'm involved on the Rural Groundwater Committee side with Jamie Kelly, who is with Mojave County Water Authority. So Arizona Department of Water Resources, they're working on what is called basin supply and demand assessments for an initial 7 basins. Wilcox, Douglas, San Bernardino, McMullen, Butler, Harquahala, and Tiger Wash. These first 7 studies are to be complete in December 2023. In accordance with ARS 45-105B14, the statute states not later than December 1st of 2023 and on or before December 1st of each year thereafter, prepare and issue a water supply and demand assessment for at least 6 of the 51 groundwater basins established pursuant to section 45-403. The director shall ensure that a water supply and demand assessment is completed for all groundwater basins at least once every 5 years. And so the first 7 will be due and turned in this December, and then they'll be doing at least 6 every subsequent year until we have one that's current for all of the groundwater basins in our state. Also within the Rural Groundwater Committee, it seems that the proposed legislation that we will be reviewing and revising will be the local groundwater stewardship area legislation that we have been working on for at least 5 years now, which is nice. Final recommendations from that Rural Groundwater Committee to the governor's office will be due by December of 2023. And then the only other thing that I'll be noting, and item number 31 on our agenda today, involves a proposed 19th Arizona National Monument. I won't say the whole thing, but I call it the Baj National Monument. Half of it is in Mojave County, and Mojave County elected officials have been ignored up to this point. Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland in May visited some elected officials over in Coconino County. Mojave County wasn't invited. We weren't even told that there was a meeting. Now we found out that there's going to be a public comment meeting in Flagstaff tomorrow. I complained and we reached out. They being the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service has agreed to meet with us tomorrow. So those of our elected officials that are able to attend and be a part of that delegation, I would encourage all of you to go. They've also committed to a virtual meeting, and then we're still looking at trying to get them to do an in-person meeting somewhere in Mojave County. We requested Colorado City because the boundary of the proposed national monument is sort of right to their south, and they're very concerned. They've come out with resolution opposing, just like we have. Also Kane County, Washington County, Utah, Hillsdale, Utah. They've all come out with their own resolutions opposing the monument, and half of it, as it happens, is within Mojave County. So they need to treat us the same way that they're treating Coconino County folks. So that'll be tomorrow, and that's all I have for that update. Number 3 is our lobbyist report from High Ground. Mr. Ponder, are you on the phone?
I am.
Go ahead and proceed with your update, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Supervisors. I caught the tail end of Supervisor Langenfelter's discussion about the Governor's Water Policy Council, and just want to echo everything that he said. From our perspective, while it's been frustrating not being able to get these things, this legislation across the finish line last year and presumably this year, the direction, the communication, the support that we're getting from, I think, folks inside the room in the Groundwater Policy Council, as well as the Governor's Office, the Attorney General's Office, Department of Water Resources, is a really good indication of where we should be going next year. I will also say that the Governor's Office and the Department of Water Resources have made it clear in those meetings that while they have legislative authority through the 1980 Groundwater Management Act, as well as any updates to the Irrigation Non-Expansion Area Statute, to act unilaterally and protect Arizona residents in basins that may be challenged, they would prefer the legislative route, but will use any tools to their disposal, just as they did with the INA that you guys requested in Hualapai Valley. So the indication from the Governor's Office and from the Department of Water Resources, again, is that they are willing to use that authority should no alternative be presented to, which I think is positive. You all may recall that in March, I believe it was, the Attorney General wrote a letter to the Department of Water Resources saying you've only reviewed one basin twice since 1980 to determine their water supply, and so how are you going to suggest that you are adequately adhering to the state statute that requires that basins be reviewed? I think that a lot of this dialogue is sort of manifesting out of some other pressure points that have been created on the department over those last several months. So feeling very positive about the direction that is going. There was a meeting, as Supervisor Langenfelter stated, on June 27th, which evolved into a subcommittee meeting on July 11th. And again, comments were submitted. I can provide Manager Elters the comments that were provided by each interest in that meeting. If you would wish to share, if you would wish to receive that from him, to see the dialogue that will help you understand where the comments are coming from. Other than that, the legislative session, as you all know, we are still technically in it. Although they are on recess, they will be coming back on July 31st. So, and the indication I had just this morning was that everything is going to be largely ceremonial on July 31st, and that they hope to be adjourned sine die at that point in time. Maybe some short ministerial duties on that day, and then adjourn at that point in time, which means any legislation would be effective 90 days thereafter. So we're tracking with what has been stated previously with respect to the end of the session. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ponder. Any questions for High Ground today? Hearing none, I think we'll go ahead and let you go. Thank you again.
Thank you.
County Manager's Report. Manager Elters.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. No report today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Call to the public. Danielle Oli Keck. If I said that wrong, I'm sorry.
Good morning, supervisors and board members. I appreciate your time, and I hope you're all staying cool this morning. I wanted to let the public know that I am going to be in the back with the letter of opposition for the upcoming proposals for solar rezoning in District 4 here in Golden Valley. I have created a list of questions that I think are important for us to get answers to, that I personally have. And so if you would like to pick up a letter, if you're in opposition, I'll be in the back. You can read the questions I have, sign it, and if you'd like to turn it back into me, you can, and I'll make copies so that way we can keep them accounted for before we turn them into the clerk of the board. And that is that on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Works.
Kenny Works, Yucca, Arizona. I'm concerned about our upcoming elections. I've been in the backyard practicing my early voting techniques. I think it's something we really need to be working on from here on out until the elections. John Dickinson, experience must be our only guide. Reason may mislead us. And has not experience verified the utility of restraining money bills to the immediate representatives of the people, which led to Article 1, Section 7, Clause 1. Provides only the House of Representatives can initiate new taxes. And that's because they decided that experience trumps reason. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Jiddu Krishnamurti, 1895 to 1986, philosopher, speaker, and writer. If someone has a gun and is trying to kill you, it would be reasonable to shoot back with your own gun. 14th Dalai Lama, 1935, highest spiritual leader and head of Tibet. Learn to see in another's calamity the ills which you should avoid. Publius Sirius, 845 to 443 BC, 85 to 43 BC, a Latin writer. But it all says the same thing. We've got to go by our experience and not let reason so-called reason come along and continue to mislead us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Armin Stange?
Good morning, Chairman, Supervisors. It is again 4365 South Cavalry Road, the Messner property. You know, you see a picture here, it's a complete junkyard. Development Services hasn't done anything about it yet. And I have actually a text message from Messner that I'm chasing his renters away and I deprive him of his income. Well, since he has renters, why is he only paying property taxes on residential property, not rental property? That's the first question. Second question is, he's getting $800 a month on rent on a rental agreement I have seen, and he's not paying taxes on it. There's something wrong with that picture as well. And I filed a complaint against the 4365 property, and there were flammable material on the roof and everything else. Code enforcement just closed the case with no good reason. Why isn't it investigated and done something about it? And now the case is handed over to the county attorney, and I haven't seen any progress on it. So something needs to be changed here. There need to be more effort done to clean up the neighborhoods. I come back here every time with another address. I bitch and moan till I get what I want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Corey Hardy?
Good morning. Okay, the reason I'm here is to talk about medication, the lack of medication, which is pain medication. I'm new here to Arizona. I come from California, and I've had 2 failed back surgeries, and I go around to all the pharmacies trying to get them to take me on as a new patient, and they won't, and so I found one. So my doctor, they'll order anywhere from 6 to 8 pills a day for me to take of hydrocodone. And I go to the pharmacy, they'll only give me 3 or 4 pills a day because they say they cannot get it. All of them say that. They say that the supply is not out there. I mean, there's a lot of older people here that are retired, and I might not seem old, but I'm 62 years old. And all I want to do is be comfortable, and I'm fighting with pharmacies to fill my prescriptions. The doctor gives me a 5-day supply of 40, and the pharmacy says, no, you have to make that 40 last for 10 days. So all I am asking is if you guys can look into that, assign somebody to look into it, and maybe come up with some kind of help and resolve to be able to, you know, solve the problem for people in pain. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Scotty McClure.
Well, it looks like you got enough applications for the appointment of the county recorder. So I was afraid you weren't gonna have enough, so that's why I put mine in. But we ran into this problem over there in Bullhead. We had an appointment, and I wish there would be some kind of rule or something that you guys could go by that if the appointment's over a year out, you should have an election. If it's 6 months, 3 months, then that's spending $80,000 is ridiculous if it's only 3 months away. But there should be a term, some kind of limit that if it's a year away, have an election. That happened in Bullhead. And we did get a good candidate, and they did select the right person, I think. There were like 16 of us that applied for one seat. Now, that either indicates that we're real pissed about Steve D'Amico and his socialist people that are running on that board now. He's changed that. We have no say whatsoever anymore. No public comment or nothing. It's just the 6 people that are left on there make the decision. And that I do not like, that he took our rights away to get up and stand here for 3 minutes and say something. He took our rights away. And the one person that voted against that, that's the first thing he did when he got in office, was make that new rule. She voted against it, the person that was replaced. She knew, Hildy, I think. And the appointments before, we had 3 or 4, one person resigned, and we had a couple more deaths, and so we've been through heck over there. But Steve decided that he would appoint his wife to the audience committee. And Zahari, he also appointed his wife. Then we found out, and we changed that rule. I don't know how many times we changed the rules over there on how to vote or appoint or whatever. But I think there ought to be some kind of rule that if it's over a year, there has to be an election whether you want to spend your $50,000 or $100,000 or not.
Thank you, sir. Robbie Larkin.
Good morning, Robbie Larkin from Fort Mojave, Arizona. I just wanted to talk about the Mountain View Road. We were going to put those extensions in by Gardner. I was wondering if you guys were going to block the road off, because that is an end of a street at the end of Gardner, and we get a lot of traffic coming from all the other subdivisions back there, and our road, part of our road is not maintained, and it's getting really bad. We got some big holes and the riprap and all the stuff in the dirt. And I just wondered what you guys were going to do when they put that extension in there. And then also a couple weeks ago, you guys were talking about the storage sheds and stuff on people's property. Well, I live next door to a guy that's got at least 30 boats in his yard, and some of them outside of his yard. And I'm just wondering if somebody can go over there and have him clean that crap up, because it's pretty bad. Minimum of 30 boats. And then also I wanted to talk about, they're going to do that Highway 95, putting in the new asphalt. And they dug those 3-foot diameter holes and put cold mix in them. And I don't know if you guys have driven over them lately, but we need to know who we have to contact when it wipes our front ends of our vehicles and our tires. I know you can't do much about that, but if you can let us know who we got to contact and to complain to them about those holes getting bigger and bigger. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Esposito.
Jennifer Esposito, candidate for District 4 County Supervisor. I'd like to talk to you today about cargo containers and poultry. As far as the controversy over the cargo containers goes, when you live in rural Mojave County outside of the cities, what you do, the reason you move out there is sort of to be left alone, right? So part of the problem is when you pass the International Property Maintenance Code years ago, that was really designed like an HOA type situation. It doesn't apply to rural Mojave County. A while back, you went in and you carved out an exception for the types of sheds that are sold commonly at places like Home Depot. And you said, okay, well, you can have a shed that's prefab that's up to 300 square feet. Here's a thought. Instead of trying to micromanage how people in the rural areas, well, okay, if your lot's this big, you can only store this much stuff or this much. Just go in, pick the biggest size cargo container they make, and say, okay, now that's the size storage container you can have. Shed, cargo container, doesn't matter. I suspect that tractor trailers don't fall into that because anything that is a vehicle, ever was a vehicle, or ever will be a vehicle, again, is regulated by the state, should not be regulated by the county. You have no jurisdiction there. But as far as these cargo containers go, if you don't have the courage to repeal the International Building Code, which you should, then at least have the courage to not micromanage people's storage, because if they're not putting it in a nice, neat cargo container, it's going to be all over their yard. So just, you know, this isn't rocket science. Just do it right. Now, on the poultry thing, I thought it was awfully magnanimous of you guys to say, oh, but, you know, chickens aren't allowed in Butler right now. So you don't understand. We're giving you your rights back to have chickens. Oh, but you're wrong. And here's why. This is our title insurance, okay? When you go to the section on the back, it says very clearly that covenants, conditions, and restrictions in the document recorded in docket 155, page 327, but deleting any covenant, condition, or restriction indicating a preference, limitation, or discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, et cetera, that not being covered. Okay? Covenants. Let's talk covenants. If you are in the original Butler subdivision, here is the covenant from 1969 from let's see, that would be Elmer and Edna Mae Butler. So it says under F, no large animals or livestock shall be raised, bred, or kept on any lot. However, rabbits and poultry are specifically exempted from this provision, provided they are properly fenced and penned or caged. Personal pets such as dogs, cats, or other household pets may be kept, but shall be kept fenced or leashed at all times, provided further that they shall be kept in such a manner as not to create a public nuisance. So here you go. Poultry, grandfathered in. That includes ostriches, emus, roosters. How many should I get? How many should I tell my neighbors to get? Because, you know, just saying.
Thank you. Jeff Esposito.
All right, good morning, Ron, Hildy, and Travis. I won't be here on the 7th to talk about this $5 surcharge that is stupid on 1,000 gallons of water and GVID. I don't understand why you're putting it off. I mean, what do you want, $5 more? Okay, the resolution placing the $5 per 1,000 gallon surcharge on GVID customers must be rescinded. It is unbelievable that a supposed Republican-dominated forum like U5 voted for it, and a rate hike too. Shame on you. A large percentage of GVID customers are on fixed incomes, living at or below poverty level. Used people seem to think that $5 is a paltry sum. Knowing all 5 of you, I can understand that thought clanging around in 2 of your distorted brains. You other 3 amaze me with your vote along to get along ways. You 3 have not been sucking on the public teat long enough to forget what reality is. Although kudos to Hildy, because she actually said something about rescinding the $5 at one point. The 5 of you were voted in to protect and serve the people, not yourselves and your friends. Know this, we the people are legion. We will remove you. On another note, any elected person had better think twice before trying to push any New World Order, World Economic Forum, or World Health Organization 2030 agenda communist resolutions. The latest being the one going after our chickens. Someone up there even spewed the insane idea about taking our chickens out to stud, which shows a tremendous lack of intelligence. Okay, this is not England, New England, DC, Canada, or Europe. This is Mojave County. We don't like communists, and we will remove you. We the people are legion. Thank you,
sir. Thank you, sir. John Keck.
everybody. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity, this time to talk to you guys and make yourselves available. Appreciate that. And it's not easy, but you guys are doing a great job. I'd like to just be thankful and mention the court case that was on the July 12th. Mr. Esplin over there was representing, you guys and everybody else. And during that case, there was quite a few things revealed, but Mr. Esplin kept mentioning, let the court decide. And then we kind of delayed a few things to let the court decide. And then during the court event, Mr. Esplin saying, let the board decide. And so it's kind of confusing. So I'd like to make it aware to everybody, if you would like to watch what happened on July 12th, the videos, if you go to Mojave Courts, go to find Judge Janta's videos and watch what happened and watch the information that was revealed during the court case as to how, this issue is a county issue and how the county employees were the ones who instituted this $5 surcharge. And it was just passed, and it was passed again. And it's really, you guys, the opportunity's in your hands now to realize, a mistake was made. And if you look up Psalms 35, which is what we talked about last week, and verse 10, it talks about how, it's all about being the poor and the needy. The poor and the needy, that's an opportunity. Poor is a state of heart of saying, I made a mistake. I make mistakes. I'm constantly making mistakes. And when you make a mistake, there's an opportunity to make it right. And, that's what we're here for. And during the court case, people were coming up and they were saying from the county, if the ARPA funds are available, if the grant's available, and, these costs, like, to drill the well with KP Ventures, it was only $400,000, $500,000. And now they're saying that it takes $3 million to build a well. What happened? And now there's a 1.9 million, 1.7 million. What happened to 500,000? And what happened to that KP Ventures? If anybody understands what happened during the well building of KP Ventures is, well, the county hired an engineer who has no well drilling experience. That still is our engineer for the county. And he hired a geologist with no well drilling experience. And somehow they drilled a well. And during that time, they changed the cement. The cement keeps the structure in place forever. And they changed the cement combo and it broke. And now we're stuck with that. And now this surcharge comes on our back while it was really the county's issue. And now they didn't know about any of these funds. Anyways, go on to watch the Mojave Courts, judges, and see the information that was available. And there was also $500,000 of maintenance funds swept. I'm curious about when that money's gonna come back. And if you hand over the board to us, like you said you would, what's gonna happen? Will we still be available to receive the ARPA funds? And how quick is that process? How quick would that board be handed over? And why not hire KP Ventures again and restitute them whole and pay them that $2 million you guys are talking about too, for all the time that they did put into it. And also my last point is our assets. It looks like all of our well assets in Golden Valley are on county land. When is that process going to be handed over? We paid for that out of our money. Really all the money and the issues we're paying for county members' salaries. It's not even GVID's issues, and they're telling us that we're at a $250,000 deficit every year. It's on county employee salaries. It's not even on our well and our money. And yes, there's probably 1,000 people that are going to have to make serious decisions because of this surcharge. And
I'm gonna have to call up the next speaker now.
Can I say one more thing?
No, you had your 3 minutes. You need to go sit down, please.
There's thousands of people working right now.
Randy Perry, please. Randy Perry,
themselves.
you had your 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
I'm trying to represent the people who aren't here because they're
Appreciate
working.
that. And you did a good job of it. Thank you.
Chairman Lingenfelter, just a reminder to make sure the people state their name for the record.
Thank you.
My name is Randy Perry. I live in Kingman. I was here, not the last meeting, but the meeting before, and I mentioned about the roads and about how bad they are. Right after I left this meeting, that day afternoon, I hit a pothole so bad, took a chunk out of my tire and cracked my windshield. All right, who do I give that bill to? Cost me $750 for tires and $425 for a windshield. I shouldn't have to pay it. I already paid the county taxes. Next thing is, I went up to Washington State. I drove up to Washington State in a U-Haul. So you know how bad those things ride. And I got up above Las Vegas, around Tonopah, and from Tonopah to Bishop, which is about 460 miles, didn't hit a bump. It rode like glass. And they fix their roads all the time. Those are 2-lane road, so it gets a lot of traffic. However they're fixing their roads, you need to send somebody up there to find out, because that thing was as smooth as glass. I drove that thing, and it was unbelievable. I said, the county here needs to spend a couple people up there, figure out how they're fixing their roads, come down here and teach the ones here, because they don't know how to do it here. They fix a road here, 2 weeks later, you got another pothole. I'm a contractor here. I'm a plumbing contractor. I have to guarantee my work for 2 years, according to the ROC. How come the people that patch the roads don't? You let everybody and their brother patch the roads. Find out how to fix them right, have 1 or 2 companies do it, or the county, and then publicize who's fixing the roads, so we knew who to call when them things pop up again. You got that cable company going through the town, this whole town, tearing up the streets and doing their potholes, and they're not fixing them properly. That's what Walker Electric and the ALO cable company. They're not fixing them properly. That was one of their holes that I hit. Like I said, you guys got to fix the roads. You know, that's what we pay for. You know, if my vehicle has to be roadworthy, your roads should be vehicle worthy. Have a good day.
Sir, I would just say if it happened in city limits, that you need to go over to the city, because the city is responsible for maintaining all the roads within city limits.
It was in the county.
Okay, thank you.
It was in the county where my vehicle was damaged.
Thank you.
Where do I send that bill?
Risk manager, yeah, risk manager, or to the clerk.
Chairman Lingenfelter, if you want to file a claim with the county, if you go up to the 3rd floor to the clerk of the board's office, they can give you a form, and then that's where you would turn it in.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before you close call to public, may I just, I'm not responding, I'm just asking. Mr. Stang has come up here every meeting for years, and there seems to be some activity, so I'm asking that you put that update on our agenda next time to see what's going on with those properties. Literally years he has been coming here, so I want to see what's going on with those properties as well.
Thank you. I think we have a presentation this morning. ADEQ, PFAS strategy and sampling plan for Mojave County, presented by Lauren Allison, ADEQ. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm not Lauren Allison. I'm Paula Panzino. I'm the Chief Science Officer for ADEQ. We do have a presentation about PFAS. It is an emerging contaminant in the state of Arizona. I'd like to entertain questions after the video. So if we could roll that now, that would be great.
PFAS is a term for a group of chemicals that many Arizona residents are likely to hear more about in the coming years. We at ADEQ would like to provide you with a brief introduction of PFAS in Arizona so you can understand what PFAS are, what ADEQ is doing to address these chemicals in our environment, and what steps to take now to protect your health. First, it's important to understand some basic facts about PFAS. Per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, are a large family of man-made chemicals that have been in use since the 1940s. PFAS have unique physical and chemical properties that make them very useful for a wide range of applications, most notably stain and water resistance. But these same properties can make them highly stable and resistant to degradation in the environment, earning them the nickname forever chemicals. Because the length of their carbon-fluorine tail and the structure of their functional head can vary, thousands of unique PFAS molecules are possible. Some PFAS have been more commonly manufactured than others, including 2 of the most widely used and studied PFAS molecules, PFOA and PFOS. Scientific studies have shown that exposure to some PFAS may be linked to harmful health effects in humans and animals. Depending on how much PFAS someone is exposed to and for how long, certain PFAS can have potential harmful effects. For example, increasing the chance of getting some cancers, increasing cholesterol levels, and affecting reproductive health and child development. Because of their unique and beneficial properties, PFAS have been incorporated into many common consumer products, including carpets, furnishings, food packaging, cosmetics, clothing, cookware, and many others. In some cases, consumers can choose to limit their exposure to PFAS, for example, by avoiding products labeled as water or stain resistant, avoiding food in contact with grease-proof packaging, and avoiding personal care products with fluorinated ingredients on the label. Drinking PFAS-contaminated water is another potential source of exposure, but one that for many is not easily avoided through personal choice alone. However, in most cases, exposure to contaminated drinking water can be eliminated through testing, regulation, and treatment, something we'll discuss more in just a bit. The life cycle of PFAS starts when they are first manufactured by industry. Although Arizona has not historically been home to any PFAS manufacturers, these chemicals can make their way to our state through the purchase of consumer products, the use of firefighting foams, and as raw materials used in the production of other products. People may be exposed directly from using these products, but as they are used or thrown away, they also enter our landfills and our wastewater treatment plants, and in turn can be released into the environment where they can accumulate and do not easily break down. From there, they may end up in our food or our drinking water. With PFAS so common in the world today, it's not surprising that we find these chemicals in our bodies as well. The CDC has measured PFAS in the U.S. population since 1999 and has found that PFAS are present in the blood of 99% of Americans. However, since 2002, the production and use of two of the most common PFAS, PFOA and PFOS, has declined, and researchers have seen a corresponding decline in blood levels. In the case of PFOS, by more than 85%. Therefore, despite their forever chemical nickname, we can see that reducing exposure to these chemicals can have a positive impact on the levels in our bodies. PFAS are not currently regulated at the national level or in Arizona. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency first released provisional PFAS health advisories in 2009, which defined advisory levels for PFOA and PFOS. Since that time, the advisory levels have been revised lower, first in 2016 and again in 2022, and were expanded to include additional compounds, PFBS and Gen X chemicals. Health advisories are not legally enforceable. They identify the concentration of a contaminant in drinking water at which adverse health effects are not anticipated to occur over a lifetime. In March 2023, EPA took the next step. After many years of study and recent research, EPA proposed a national primary drinking water regulation. The proposed regulation would create a maximum contaminant level, or MCL, for 6 common PFAS. An MCL is the maximum concentration of a contaminant allowed in drinking water that can be delivered by a public water system. EPA has proposed to regulate PFOA and PFOS at a level of 4 parts per trillion, while 4 other PFAS are proposed to be regulated as a mixture using a standard calculation called a hazard index. These proposed MCLs were developed by EPA to account for chronic exposures to low levels of PFAS over time. At concentrations typically found in drinking water, they are not dangerous in the same way as acute water contaminants like E. coli, which may be dangerous if consumed even once. It may be helpful to understand the unit of measure that's being used by EPA for the proposed regulation. 1 part per trillion is equivalent to a single drop of water in 20 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So this hopefully gives you an idea of just how small these numbers really are, and also how cautious EPA is being about the long-term risks associated with exposure to PFAS in our drinking water. ADEQ is closely following PFAS developments at the federal level, and the EPA has developed a roadmap that lays out their commitment to take specific actions. It's expected that EPA will finalize the proposed drinking water regulation within the next year. However, implementation of the final rule will occur 3 years later, giving states and water providers the time needed to address contamination. In addition to drinking water regulations, EPA has proposed designating certain PFAS as hazardous substances, which would allow the state and federal government to hold polluters accountable. And EPA has also proposed aquatic life standards to help protect wildlife in our streams and rivers. These are all just a few of the many federal PFAS developments that are expected over the next several years. So what is ADEQ doing about PFAS in Arizona? ADEQ is taking several steps to protect public health and help our state prepare for future EPA actions. Beginning in 2018, ADEQ conducted targeted screening efforts to understand the scope of PFAS impacts in Arizona. This testing included drinking water, groundwater, wastewater, and biosolids. In 2023, we began a comprehensive PFAS testing program to make sure that all of Arizona's regulated drinking water systems are sampled for PFAS in advance of federal regulations. If PFAS are detected, we can begin working right away with affected water providers to collect more data, find solutions, and identify funding to reduce exposure to PFAS. We'll have more details on this important program in just a moment. While we're actively working to protect drinking water, we're also trying to identify the most effective ways to prevent more PFAS from entering our environment. ADEQ recently piloted a program to help Arizona fire departments stop their use of PFAS-containing aqueous film-forming foams, known as AFFF. The program was allocated $395,000 during fiscal year 2023, which allowed us to take back and replace foam from over 50 fire stations, removing over 9,000 gallons of PFAS-containing foam from being used.
We had 275 gallons that we no longer were utilizing because of the risk. And a truck easily pulled up, loaded it, and unloaded that F500 that we'll now be able to distribute to our trucks.
Being involved in this program was so essential and critical for us to get rid of these chemicals.
As mentioned earlier, ADEQ is currently engaged in a comprehensive statewide effort to ensure that all regulated water systems are tested for PFAS. EPA is currently requiring that systems serving 3,300 customers or more sample their drinking water for PFAS. However, in the state of Arizona, the majority of systems serve fewer than 3,300 people and will not be sampled under the EPA program. Therefore, ADEQ has committed to using $3 million of Federal Safe Drinking Water Act funds to sample these small water systems and help ensure that all regulated water systems in Arizona will be tested. Results are generally provided to water systems within 2 to 4 weeks of sampling and are posted to the ADEQ website. If PFAS are detected, ADEQ provides the system with a PFAS toolkit, specially developed to help water systems meet the challenges this may cause. The toolkit includes information on funding, customer communication, and potential next steps. Systems are asked to follow EPA recommendations to inform their customers of the results. Our program to test small drinking water systems has a number of benefits for the systems and their customers. First, it provides PFAS sampling to systems at no charge, potentially saving them thousands of dollars. These systems can then be notified of PFAS detections much earlier than if they wait until they are required to sample under forthcoming federal regulations. For those systems with PFAS concentrations higher than the EPA's proposed limits, they can get a head start planning for expanded testing, evaluating potential solutions, and applying for federal funding if necessary. With many systems across the nation facing similar challenges, it's important that Arizona's drinking water providers begin planning to meet the new rules as soon as possible. So what can you do if PFAS is detected in your drinking water? If your water is confirmed to contain PFAS, in many cases, action is not necessary immediately. You can choose to reduce your exposure as soon as possible by not using untreated water for activities like drinking, cooking, washing produce, brushing teeth, or preparing formula. However, it's generally safe to continue using untreated water for activities like washing dishes, showering, laundry, swimming, and watering your yard. If you have concerns about PFAS in your water, there are a number of at-home treatments available, such as activated carbon and reverse osmosis. You can check sources such as the NSF or your local filter installer for more information on effective treatment systems for your home. It should be noted that boiling water will not remove PFAS, and bottled water providers are not required to test for PFAS, so use caution if you choose to drink bottled water. PFAS can be a complicated topic, and this presentation is meant only as a brief introduction. If you'd like to learn more about PFAS in Arizona, please visit our My Community webpage. There you can find a map displaying the results of statewide PFAS screening and links to other helpful resources. If you'd like to talk with someone directly, we have staff available to speak with you and answer any questions you might have. Thank you for listening.
Hello. So that was the introduction to PFAS video that ADEQ is bringing to all boards of supervisors across Arizona. I thank you for making time in your agenda to listen to the video. We also prepared a fact sheet for you that summarizes the sampling that has been done, the sampling and testing that has been done in Mojave County. So I'd like to spend the rest of the time that I have here reviewing those results that are in the fact sheet. The public water systems that are eligible for ADEQ sampling in Mojave County, there are 116 of them. So I take that back. There are 116 total systems. The systems eligible for ADEQ's 2023 testing project are 53. If you recall from the video, those are the public water systems that have 3,300 customers or less. The systems participating are to be determined. So this is just a heads up for the Board of Supervisors that ADEQ will be testing systems and has been starting to test systems in Mojave County. With that testing process, we will be getting data out to your drinking water systems relative to whether or not PFAS compounds have been detected and what those concentrations are. As you may have gathered from the video, we are not regulating PFAS yet. The federal regulation has yet to be set. That federal regulation is supposed to be finalized at the end of this year. And then after that, state regulations are promulgated, and that can take up to 3 years. In the meantime, we are encouraging small drinking water systems that have PFAS concentrations to think about installing treatment and going to WIFA, the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, for safe drinking water funding to help with the installation of treatment. So we have started sampling in Mojave County, and there were some earlier sampling results where PFAS was detected. In 2014, the Oatman water system was sampled by the EPA with concentrations of 3 different PFAS compounds, all of which, 2 of which are above the new proposed federal MCLs. We have completed 70% of the sampling in the county. The only recent detection of PFAS was for a PFAS compound called PFBS, and that was in Truxton Canyon Water Company. That concentration was 2.76 parts per trillion in one of the 2 entry points to the distribution system. That concentration is not above the standard, so those folks should be fine to be continuing to drink that water. In 2018, there was a single detection in Hilldale, Colorado City. I don't have the data for that. I apologize for that. But so that was a long time ago. It should be resampled shortly. We did sample the Bullhead City wastewater treatment plant, and PFAS was detected both in the wastewater effluent and in the biosolids. There is no regulation for wastewater effluent and or biosolids yet coming from the EPA. There are guidelines, however, requesting that wastewater treatment plants look at potential sources of PFAS to their, so industrial users that might have PFAS in their manufacturing processes to minimize the amount of PFAS that's going into wastewater. And the last part of this was you saw the aqueous film-forming foam replacement. the fire departments in Mojave County that have participated in the AFFF replacement process. So that's replacement of AFFF that contains PFAS with a product that does not have PFAS. The fire departments that have participated were Lake Havasu City Fire Department, Desert Hills Fire District, Northern Arizona Fire District, and Colorado City Fire District. The number of gallons replaced was 1,875 gallons. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions from the board, please.
Sorry, thank you for your presentation today. I'd open it up for questions. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you. This was an interesting presentation, thank you. But never once did you say what the negative health effects are. Like, why is this important and why is this coming up now?
Yeah, so the negative health effects are provided in the presentation. They were in the video, but they are basically, there are some cancer, prostate, testicular cancer, effects on the thyroid, effects on the kidney. Most vulnerable populations are going to be pregnant mothers.
And you said that 99% of people have this in their blood, but not at a toxic level.
We don't know if it's at a toxic level in people's blood in Mojave County because there has not been any blood testing.
Okay, but in the presentation, it did say 99% of people, and I'm assuming we're in that.
That is from a
everybody
nationwide.
apparently is in that. So, why is this coming now to us? Like, what is the program expanding? Is there going to be more regulations? There are going to be more regulations.
Yes.
Is that the bottom line?
Yes.
Great.
So the EPA is putting together a drinking water standard. That drinking water standard covers 6 different PFAS compounds. And they are assessing other PFAS compounds for their toxicity and impact on human health.
Other questions from the board? Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you're collecting all this contaminants from the fire departments, what do you do with it?
It is sent to a hazardous waste landfill. It's sent to the U.S. Ecology landfill in Nevada.
So they put it in the ground?
Yes, they put it in a cell.
How does the EPA think they're going to solve anything if they're not checking bottled water? Because probably half the people in this room are drinking bottled water and not drinking from our taps. I mean, that seems a little crazy that they're not, if it's that big of a danger, why we're not looking at something that is such a high-selling product.
That
I know
is
you might not have the answer.
That's a great observation. You know, that is something that needs to be decided on a national level, whether or not we test and certify bottled water.
And then will they be, you brought up Bullhead wastewater plant. They're dumping effluent back into the river. Nevada dumps their effluent back into the river. Now Havasu's talking about dumping their effluent back in the river. I'm guessing these problems will continue to grow in the wildlife and everything else if we do that. That's all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's a very wise
Supervisor.
observation.
Other questions from the board? Thank you again for coming up and sharing your presentation, answering questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you. We'll move to the consent agenda. Supervisor Bishop, would you like to remove any items from consent this morning?
29.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you. 13, 18, 24, and 27.
Thank you. Supervisor Gould.
Number 19, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Johnson, excuse me.
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to remove items number, let's see here. I think 23 was already pulled. 29 and 31. Looking for a motion to approve consent minus items 13, write this out really quick, excuse me. 13,
I'll take a stab at it.
27, 29, 31, okay. Looking for a motion to approve consent minus items 13, 18, 19, 23, 24, 27, 29, and 31.
Mr. Chairman, I think you got that a little backwards.
Okay.
We have to approve the ones that we're not calling out. So it'll be a motion.
Motion to approve items
Right.
that I just called out, right?
No.
No,
All the other ones, those are the ones we're pulling out,
minus, yeah.
minus.
That's right. I thought I said that. I'm sorry. I was looking for a motion to approve consent minus items 13, 18, 19, 23, 24, 27, 29, 31.
So moved.
I have a question. Who polled 23? Because I didn't mark that one.
Oh, no, I didn't.
I pulled 23.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 13. Supervisor Gould.
I did that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand how dangerous it must be in the Development Services Building if they're getting bulletproof glass. It brings me back, and maybe Supervisor Johnson will remember this. There was a time that the whole third floor wanted to put bulletproof drywall up on the third floor. And what I said at the time is, instead of doing that, why don't you find out why everybody hates you so much? But I'm interested to know if this has now become a dangerous place that you have to put up bulletproof glass.
Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, Supervisor Incas, good morning. Item 13 is an item that we actually placed in the budget last year, and I believe we discussed a little bit during the budget last year, and similar question. In development services, we deal with a lot of cash. We receive a lot of payments for applications for permits, building permits, all of those types of things. And as is custom throughout the county, whenever there's cash transactions, typically we'll see that bulletproof glass. Unfortunately, it's a sign of the times of what we're seeing. This is really just a proactive measure to protect our employees. Currently, there is that, with COVID, we've got the separation that went up with the sneeze guards and those. This basically would just replace those sneeze guards with bulletproof glass.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Elters, do we really have bulletproof glass on most of the places that accept cash here in the county? Is that the norm now?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Angus, good morning again. That is my understanding. Where we handle cash, those do exist. I would be more than happy to inventory those. I wouldn't be able to name the locations to you, but I do know they do exist in multiple county buildings.
Okay.
Other questions from the board? We do have 3 members of the public that need to speak today on this item. First is Jennifer Esposito.
Thank you, Jennifer Esposito. This is just silly and absurd. You argue about the budget and how you can't balance the budget and you're going to have budget deficits and, oh my goodness, so much of it is mandated by statute or whatever. And then this is a shining example of why you can't balance the budget. This building is hardly unsafe. I realize that, and I know for a fact that there are employees who are armed at work, and they should be. And I'm hoping that some of you are armed. I like to be armed, still allowed in this building. So the fact that you need to put bulletproof glass when you got good guys with guns, just because you might take catch, come on, really? Really? And you wonder why you can't balance the budget. Because you put silly things like this that you want to pay for with taxpayer money. As a taxpayer in Mojave County, I don't consent to bulletproof glass. I consent to everybody carrying, and I consent to people knowing the risks when they come to work. The guy at the convenience store is probably going to be a lot more likely to be robbed. I'm pretty sure you have security in the building, pretty sure you have cameras in the building. I mean, really? I'm sorry, just the absurdity of this is mind-blowing. So I just want to say, come on, don't approve this. I mean, if you were flush with cash, fine. You know, you can have toys. It's about as silly as, oh, I don't know, putting up plexiglass to protect yourself from COVID at taxpayer expense. You know, come on. Thank you for pulling this item for discussion.
Danielle Olikek.
Hello, and thank you again, Danielle Olikek. I thought there was a camera. Oh, there it is. So I just wanted to put, is that on the camera to show the document or no? There it is. So I see today the item that you're supposed to be approving, going up for approval, is for the amount of the $112,900 for the first round of first floor installation of the bulletproof counter windows. But the final bid is actually around $250,000 that it's going to take in that budget. My question is, I've always homeschooled my kids, but my oldest is actually going up to Lee Williams this year, his first year in public school. So I have a couple questions. How many public schools in Mojave County are fitted with bulletproof windows? Are there any plans in the budget to make sure that our children and teachers get the same kind of protection that our government offices are currently securing? And what kind of investment has Mojave County made into our public schools to make sure they have proper protection from gunfire or sheltering in place orders?
Those are excellent questions. And as you know that in Kingman, for instance, you referenced Lee Williams High School. We have Kingman Unified School District number 20. They have their own elected school board. And that board is independent of Mojave County. They make all of the decisions for a separate taxing entity, which is the school district. So the school district will be making those decisions on how to outfit their school facilities, not Mojave County.
And then I did notice like the funding that came from, for this proposed item, or well, you're voting on it, it came from different departments. So would the school board be able to fundraise those type of monies for the public schools too? And how would that process work?
Again, I think that that's something that you probably need to contact the superintendent of the school district and ask those questions, because this board is not in a position to answer questions on behalf of a separate taxing entity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Scotty McClure.
Oh boy, the procurement department. Spending our money again. Well, they did really good taking a little bit from everybody. 36,000 from flood control, 36,000 from environmental quality, 20,000 from environmental health, and 20,000 from the building, whatever that is. Over in the assessor's office in Bullhead, we can't collect money there, I guess. You need to do something other than this. Bulletproof glass. I remember the fiasco we had up here with this beautiful thing you had here, like you go to a movie theater, where that protected everybody.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Gould.
I move that the board deny item 13.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? I would just say, I think maybe this is necessary, but in light of the fiscal challenges right now, perhaps it's something that could be deferred. So you've heard that motion in second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item number 18. Supervisor Angus?
I think they talked about this last time. Is there anything that needs to be added that everybody should know about? forgot to give my questions.
Good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Angus. This item is, I bring it before you. The last meeting, Dr. Kingsley presented his plan for awarding opioid funds via a grant process. So currently what we've been doing is each time that a settlement participant, when a new portion of the settlement is announced, we bring that before the board. It's usually a three-step process. The first step is authorizing the Attorney General to submit documentation on behalf of the county that we want to participate in the settlement. The second step is to come back before the board and say, it's now been finalized, authorize us to receive funds. And as part of the county's responsibility under that opioid settlement agreement, we have to distribute a portion of those funds out to the various cities and towns within the county. And what this will do is just allow us to, rather than coming before the board on an annual basis each time we have funds coming in for the settlement, this says when we go before the board, there's a new settlement participant, you give us permission, financial services permission to accept those monies on an ongoing basis, distribute them to the cities and towns as we need to. It's really for more efficient administration. And then when Dr. Kingsley comes before the board each spring to roll out that year's portion of the grant process, I will coordinate with him to also present at that time an update on what funds are available, what's been awarded, what's been expended so far. And so it's just really for more efficient administration.
Thank you. I want to thank Finance and Public Health for doing such an outstanding job on this money that we're getting and hopefully making sure the best use of it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item 18.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it so ordered. Item number 19, Supervisor Gould, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A member of the public requested to speak to that.
Yeah, we do have one request to speak form from Mr. Scotty McClure. You don't want to speak on this form? All right.
You're sure?
All right. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item number 19.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it so ordered. Item number 23, I pulled this. Hi, Tammy, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good, thank you. So this item is for adoption of Mojave County Economic Development Strategic Plan, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. And I went through it just a little bit. What is this going to be used for?
So this is the strategic plan for our county. This is the first one that we've done. We've got 7 goals in the.
I'm going to pause you for a moment. Supervisor Bishop.
I just wanted to call your attention to this is just to set a public hearing. I wasn't sure if you saw that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I'll just ask this one question and go ahead.
Okay.
You can finish.
This is the first strategic plan that we've had. We have 7 goals included in the plan. So we've gone through each of the communities as a group, 14 different meetings that we've held to find out what the actual community wants. We put this plan together, and then we're taking it to the federal government as well, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. So they're combined. And that we have to have a public hearing for and give 30 days notice so that the government, then we can have people comment. Sending it to the EDA when we're finished, and we can use those goals specifically for grants that we apply, and we get extra points and credits as we specify the goals that we're working on as those attached to the different goals, whether it's the EDA grant goals, grants, or whether it's USDA or EPA or any of those, we get extra points. So it's just to help us to move our grants forward.
Thank you.
Specifically.
So the reason I pulled this item was just to bring you up so that you could tell people what it was all about, because some people may not be familiar with what these types of documents are for. It is contained in the backup documentation on this agenda, so anybody that is interested, they'll have time to review that, and then they can come to the public hearing with their comments prepared.
And we'll post it, yes.
Okay.
We'll share that as well.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tammy, I didn't see any goals in there. I saw a bunch of data.
No, there's 7 goals in there. One is for business expansion, there's business retention expansion, housing, workforce, and education, collaboration and cooperation with different communities, and infrastructure, I think. They're not in that order, but pardon me. And then there's itemized.
It's in the backup?
It is in there.
I didn't see it in the backup.
It's there. There's 3 or 4 pages of that.
Okay, I'll take a look for it. Also, when did you become the Economic Development and Tourism?
When Mike Hendricks was here, he added tourism.
The board vote on that?
I don't know that.
Interesting. Thank you.
Tammy, I'll say that for next meeting, but I did go through it a little bit. I did see the 6 goals that you identified. I think there were 6 goals. Each one has a stated objective. Each one has stated action steps. But where I'm going to be asking next meeting, and hopefully you'll be prepared to answer, is I didn't see any performance metrics to measure results. So that's all I'll say on that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item number 24. I'm not sure who pulled that.
I did.
Supervisor Angus.
Who would speak to this? I just want a little bit of an update. You know, I through the years, I've heard about all the money we spend. For those of you who don't know, when an inmate comes in and they're on access, I've been told that that access gets paused and the county picks it up. But this sort of gave a whole different sort of spin on that. So, hi.
Good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter and the board, Supervisor Angus. This IGA that we have with access allows us, well, to start with, you're right. Everything stops for the inmate once they're incarcerated. So, and we pay a lot of money for health care, as you all know. But several things happen, different things can happen that require an inmate to go and get a higher level of care. So anything that's done in the hospital or outside, in an outside entity, we get charged full price for. So with this Access IGA, we can pay a lot less.
So you get their rate, so to say. How about medicine? If somebody is on, let's say, a very expensive medication, do we get any break on that? Do we get?
We don't get a break on that. It depends. There's a list of several medications that Access doesn't pay for.
Right. And I know there's been a movement for years to try to stop that exclusion in Washington, and we'll go for it again when I'm down in NACO this week. But I don't think people realize how much money we spend on the health care of people in jail.
Yeah, it's really incredible. It's very easy to run up a couple $100,000
on one person.
On one person over the course of just a couple of days.
Well, I'm glad at least for this. Maybe this will be a bit of a relief. Do you think there's any way to do it for the medication as well, like through a?
I think we handle the medication pretty well. A lot of it is covered. There's only a few items, a few different specialty medications that fall. Okay. I know of one, Biktarvy. That's one of the big ones we end up having to pay for. Right. But that's, there's not much out of the, they call them outlier medications. There's not that many of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Item to approve number 24.
Thank you. For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item number 27, Supervisor Gould, was that you?
As a member of the public.
27?
27.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
So I wanted to understand, is this something we have to do? And what do we get for it? And what is the difference by what we do here at the county versus what we pay for the statewide voter registration?
Hi.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Angus. Mojave County doesn't have a separate voter registration system. 13 of the 15 counties use the same system, AVID. It's the Arizona Voter Information Database. So we have no way to do anything with our voters without this. It's a annual agreement with the state.
Okay, so when we say that we clean up our voter rolls here, does that mean we do that here and it goes to this database?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, please?
So when we tell people that we've cleaned up our voter database, right? That we do here, but that's all housed and stored down in.
It's through the statewide database that we do anything.
And that's how several years ago, they ended up sending out letters to everybody, right? Using our logo, but it came from the state. Remember that?
No, that's the ERIC system.
What's the difference?
Oh, they're not anything.
Nothing like, all right.
The same.
So they're just,
ERIC is the Electronic Registration Information Center, and that is a system that each county has to agree to participate in, but it's through the Secretary of State's office. That's gives us the ability to do cross-state matches, get information to where we're able to work with other states, double voters. It assists us with notification of voters that move in-state, out-of-state, but it is not part of the agreement that is here today. The AVID system is actually the statewide database that we use. We do our cleanup in Mojave County. Each county does, but that is through the database of AVID.
okay, and through the years, you haven't seen any problems with this. You've been here for many years. This has been a good thing.
No, it used to be, we had a system called Power Profile, and in 2017, we upgraded. It gives us a lot better ability. It's how we process all of our early ballots, mail-out ballots, everything is done within this statewide database. And no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I requested this copy of this contract from the Secretary of State's office. They did not provide this until just this moment. I move that we continue this item to the next meeting so we can review the contract. Both of these are contracts, both the ERIC and the AVID are contracts with outside third parties. I have a problem with outside third parties managing our voter registration list. It's essentially a data file that I think we should hold closer to our chest. I'm concerned with them sharing this with outside people. And I really think this is something that we should do in-house rather than turning it over to a third party. But I'd like to review that contract before we actually move forward with this.
You've heard that motion.
Chairman Lingenfelter, I just want to point out this is an FY23 expense and it needs to be paid by the end of July.
Okay. So it's a current contract that's ongoing right now.
Yes, that's correct.
They bill us at the end of the year instead of at the beginning of the year.
Interesting.
And I just have to say that if we were to try and create our own system, I don't know that something exists like that. We're looking at.
Well, if it's something that we're using and that we have been using, I mean, I'm sure I think there's an obligation to pay for what we've used. But I think that Supervisor Gould's right. I mean, we should get a copy of the agreement at some point to not only have our supervisors look at it, but also, I mean, does procurement look at this? Does our legal staff look at this? Or is it just something that's handled by the state procurement office? So,
Mr. Chairman, I doubt this is the first time that the county would be late on a bill if we were to continue it.
well, we do have a motion on the floor. So,
For discussion,
Supervisor Angus.
is there any penalty for being late on this? And when is the contract good for? Like it was the 23, so then we enter again and we pay at the end of.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Angus, I'm not sure if there would be a penalty for a late payment, but if we delay this until August, it's going to have to be paid out of FY24 budget rather than FY23 funds.
Don't want that.
Chairman Lingenfelter, if I may also address.
Attorney Esplin.
So what is being proposed to the board today to vote upon is an agreement between the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State in Mojave County. It's not the agreement that Supervisor Gould is referring to, the one that he asked for, the underlying one, the one that the Secretary of State uses with an outside entity, a third party. One thing that I would just point out is that by entering into this agreement, they've entered into agreements with all the counties, all 15 counties. And so this is splitting the cost. So if you're talking about cost and cost arrangements, this is one way to help split the cost so that the county doesn't have to bear a lot more cost of getting their own provider and going through the process of getting their own thing. I'm only guessing, I'm speculating, but 16,000 would be, I would guess, a lot less than if the county did it on their own. This is a way of spreading out the costs so that everybody's on the same page, everybody's on the same board, all 15 counties use the same process, the same procedures, and then split that accordingly based on the numbers that they have. So just when you're considering that, keep that in mind as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
I would argue then that this item is improperly noticed. It says approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Secretary of State's office to authorize Mojave County's portion of the maintenance contract. It says approval of the agreement. If this is a paying of the bill, it's improperly noticed.
Chairman Lingenfelter, if I may respond to that. This is exactly what the board is voting for. It's an intergovernmental agreement with the Secretary of State to pay for the services that are provided. So I don't see how it's improperly noticed.
Mr. Chairman, because they're talking about paying the bill,
An
it
intergovernmental
says
agreement.
authorize the agreement.
Yeah, it's an agreement. There's paying a bill and there's any other provisions that are included in the agreement that have to be followed through.
And we're authorizing an agreement.
And that's what's been noticed on the agenda.
But it sounds like we're paying a bill of an agreement that's already been authorized.
It's paying a bill. That's one of the provisions that is required in this, is to approve an intergovernmental agreement. And one of those provisions is that we pay a bill. I mean, I can see that you would disagree. I can see that you would disagree with paying for the bill because you may disagree with the underlying agreement that the Secretary of State has with a third-party vendor. I get that. But in terms of whether this is properly noticed, this is completely properly noticed. I mean, what exactly is being offered here is an intergovernmental agreement between the Secretary of State and Mojave County to pay for their portion of the bill that all 15 counties utilize.
But Mr. Chairman, if I'm entering into an agreement, don't I get to see a copy of the contract that I wasn't provided with until this very moment?
You are provided a copy with the intergovernmental agreement. The intergovernmental agreement has been provided to and has been part of the backup.
It's not in the backup. That's why we requested it from the Secretary of State's office.
No, but if you're looking at, I get that you may disagree with that part of it. I totally understand that.
What we requested is we wanted the contract from the Secretary of State to the outside vendor.
Correct.
That was provided for me today.
Yes, and
so we're being asked to enter into an agreement to go into that agreement without seeing the contract. We don't know what the Secretary of State's up to. We haven't seen the contract. I just got the contract today.
And for that regard, I'm not disagreeing on. I'm not. But what I'm disagreeing part of is this has been properly noticed. This is an intergovernmental agreement between the Secretary of State and Mojave County for the payment of those provisions. So the
already
proper
occurred.
notice is done. But whether you wish to agree or disagree, that's for the board to decide, and I respect that.
Right, that's already occurred.
The agreement between the Secretary of State and this, yes. Now they're saying, hey, can you pay this bill? And I agree that it does seem strange that we would be paying at the end of the cycle. That's something that we should address with the Secretary of State moving forward. I get that. I wish that we would pay it up front so that we can say, hey, we don't like that idea. We don't think that's a good idea. But unfortunately, we're in a situation now where we're at the end of the bill. And so if you go back to the original question, is there any consequences? No. From a contractual standpoint, there's not. There could be consequences in terms of what is called unjust enrichment, where we've been the beneficiary over the last year of services that have been provided to us, and so they want compensation for it. So we may be liable for that. That's often something that is argued when there's an alternative to a contract dispute. Many times someone will argue unjust enrichment. So there could be something like that. But in terms of a contractual thing, no, there's not. I think the biggest issue is really just whether it's going to be paid in this budget cycle or the next one, if you decide to pay for it.
Chairman Lingenfelter?
Supervisor Angus.
So where this is basically payment for services rendered and for what we've already done, and then maybe we can put it on an agenda to really, vet it out at a future meeting. But with that, I'm going to make a motion to approve item 27.
Can't make that motion.
I think we already have a motion
Oh.
on the floor right now.
What was the motion?
You want to repeat your motion, Supervisor Gould, or would you like the clerk to do that?
That we continue this item to the next board meeting.
Attorney Esplin, just so I understand, I mean, in the backup, there's a copy of the IGA that's referenced in the item.
Yes.
I've read that. And I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but what I think that Supervisor Gould is contesting is the underlying agreement that the Secretary of State's office went through, probably with the SPO, right, State Procurement Office, and that this IGA is basically utilizing that contract. We haven't seen that underlying contract. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly
This
it.
IGA is the document that constitutes us cost sharing.
Correct, that's exactly it. And I'm not opining about Supervisor Gould's position on the third-party contract. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm only opining upon this is what it is, and I agree with your characterization of what it is, and I do think that it's been properly agendized. I get what Supervisor Gould is saying, where there's a concern here about a third-party contract, and that's for the board to decide to make that decision.
Thank you.
I respect
We
that.
do have a motion on the floor. I'm going to see if there's a second. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve item 27.
For that motion.
Second.
For that motion and second. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
It seems odd that we're agreeing to the agreement when after the service has been provided and then now we're paying for it. To me, did we ever agree to this in the first place?
And Chairman Lingenfelter, if I may respond, I agree. It is odd. I'm not disputing that. And so if you wish to do something different than it, that's for you to decide. But this is the situation we're in now, where services have been rendered, and this is how we've done it. And I can't, I'm just guessing, but we've probably done this in the past. I don't know. Maybe nobody's ever questioned it. Maybe that's why. But I think also Supervisor Angus has a valid point that this should be something that should be addressed in the future, saying, hey, instead of waiting to the end, why don't we do this at the beginning? And oh, by the way, we don't like the vendor, or whatever the case may be. But
Well, then somebody indebted us without the board's permission.
Mr. Chairman,
Manager Alters.
in the interest of time and understanding what we heard from Recorder Blair, that we've had this agreement since 2017, and presumably it was brought to the board for review before it was approved, and we've used it ever since. And understanding that it is for services already rendered, perhaps an amicable solution is to process this request, since it is for services that are rendered, get a copy of the agreement, the third-party agreement. It will be at the beginning of fiscal year 23-24. Get it to the board members and through the county attorney's office to review, and then bring it back to the board at the next board meeting or next month, discuss it and approve it for the next year going forward, or not approve it, make another decision as the board sees fit. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Manager Elters. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Guys appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Item number 29, I pulled that. I'm not sure who wants to address it, either the clerk or county manager wants to give an explanation of the intent of this modification on item number 29.
Chairman Lingenfelter, I will defer to County Manager Elters. It's under my name because the form kind of comes from my office, but I'll let him explain it.
Thank you. Manager Elters, would you just explain the intent of this modification? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, thank you. The intent here is to streamline the board meetings, to provide a platform for the public to address the board during the board meetings, and separate and clarify any confusion we may have had between the consent agenda, the call to the public hearings, and regular items. So it is from that perspective that we wanted to clarify that, continue to provide an opportunity to the public to speak, and to combine the call to the public as well as the consent, to where a member of the public wishing to speak on items not on the agenda, meaning not a public hearing item or not a regular item, to combine both the consent and the call to the public. The call to the public is designed to speak on items unrelated to the agenda, but within the board purview. And similarly for the consent, a member of the public speaking can address or broaden their comments. And if, as a result of them speaking, if a board member wishes to pull an item off the agenda, then the board members will always have that option. We just believe that is an effective way to streamline our meetings, to keep them efficient, to get through them in a reasonable time frame, but not minimize or reduce the public's ability to express their views to the board during the board meeting.
Thank you for that explanation. So if I understand it right, because over the past year and longer, we've had audience members that have wished to speak on consent items and these have been pulled. But after this change, the yellow form will be used to speak on anything that's not on the agenda and any consent items. And then the request to speak form will be used to speak on any public hearings or regular agenda items. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is.
Thank you. That's all I have. Discussion? Supervisor Angus.
For a little background, I think we've gotten a little confused over the years. People say that they have a right to speak, and I believe that. I believe everyone has a right to speak, but that's not really what the statute says. Statute, it's at the will of the chair. Up until 2012, I don't know when it started, if we ever had a call to public, but there was no call to public. And in 2012, when a new board came over, and we went to 5 supervisors, we decided it was going to do the right thing and do that. But because I keep hearing that I have a right, and I have a right, and that's debatable if you have a right. This is for the call to public. We didn't have, we allow it, but there has to be some decorum. However, I'm looking at this, and it's like we're back to square one. So what is all participants and attendees shall be dressed appropriately. Clothes and appearance shall not be disruptive to the proceedings. Back in 2012, if you were wearing like a flag, you couldn't come in. If you were wearing a hat, you couldn't come in. You had to take your hat off. And it was so extreme that, that was one of the reasons that we started all of this. So I don't really want to go backwards with that. People wear what they want to wear. I think by disruptive, you mean if it has a 4-letter word. I mean, I think, it's like profanity, like what's X-rated, you know it when you see it. I mean, we can't really define it. So I think that everyone has a part in this. If we're going to have a real robust call of public, we also have to have some decorum and stop with the name calling and stuff like that. Do you have a right to do that? You probably could. Should you? It's more of a reflection on, I believe, the person speaking. But then again, it's up to the chair, as far as I understand it, whether or not that will go on. And so I think this is okay. I just don't like the dress code thing, because I think that's taking a big step backwards.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think the clerk want to clarify, and if not, I want to clarify.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Angus. It basically is addressing A, you have to have some clothes on, and B, like you said, there can't be any obscenities or anything like that. We do stream live, we do stream on the TV, so that's about what it falls under, nothing else other than that.
We're not going to start with the hats.
Correct, that is correct. That was removed back in like 2013.
And Mr. Chairman, just one added comment, which is we did not change that part of the forms. We literally left it as is. We just combined the call to the public and the consent. So that was not a change. It has been there since the time you referenced, Supervisor Angus.
Sure. I would just say, I know that in the courts, they've narrowed out very small categories under free speech, and I would hope that this would be interpreted strictly in accordance with that. So, entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
As appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 31. Not sure who pulled that. Was that?
Hold that
You.
one.
I pulled that.
Mr. Chairman.
That's right. Gosh, it's been a long meeting, right? I just wanted everybody to know, this is the letter that we're going to be sending to the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service, Department of Interior, basically saying that Mojave County wants to be a part of the process for any proposed 19th Arizona National Monument. And with that, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. I've had a request for a short bathroom break from the clerk, so we'll go 5 minutes recess. Thank you. Seconds.
That's what I was looking at.
Yeah.
They're talking about it, I keep looking at my water bottle. You can, if you let those things get hot, and then you, after they got real hot, like you're in the car or something real hot, you can taste the plastic when you drink the water, even if you chill it.
I'm going to reconvene the meeting. If everybody could take their seat, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on item number 32. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item number 32? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 32. Do I have a motion?
Second.
For that motion, second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Item number 33, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Got two people that have signed up. Randy Prairie. Randy Prairie. Terry Shores.
My name is Terry Shores, and I just want to speak on this item 33 on the agenda regarding a secondary property tax for flood control. Is that what this agenda is trying to implement?
Yeah, it's as written. We can't have it back and forth, but yes, ma'am.
Well, I object. You know, I oppose this. Number one, we're in the middle of a drought. And, you know, we had other things on the agenda that was going to take money from flood control for bulletproof glass and that sort of thing. It seems to me that the budget needs to be reworked. And I'm just making my opinion known that I object and I oppose this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on item number 33? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 33. Item number 30.
Chairman, you might want to explain what this is a truth in taxation hearing that we're going to
Sure.
exceed, we're going to exceed the truth in taxation levels.
I'll read what we have on our agenda for item number 34. Public hearing. Sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mojave County Free Library District, conduct the truth and taxation public hearing to receive public input on the Mojave County Free Library District for fiscal year 2023-2024. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item number 34? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing on item number 34. Item number 35. Conduct the truth and taxation and final budget public hearing to receive public input on the fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed final budget and tax levies. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on item number 35? Please approach.
Again, Jennifer Esposito. I really don't think that the county is working hard enough to get creative when it comes to the budget. You know, I hear, oh, we need this tax or we need the other tax because the public has an expectation of our level of services. Well, you know, in these kind of economic times, the public maybe should expect that everybody has to have, you know, a little less. I mean, the people who are paying the taxes are having to get very creative on how they do their own budgets, you know, and there's, you know, a lot of back and forth about whether a sales tax affects the snowbirds or a sales tax affects the poor people going to the dollar store for cheap Chinese 99-cent goods, or whether, you know, it only affects people who buy high-end items like cars, who can afford to go to a lower taxing area to make those purchases or whatever. But the bottom line is, and I've said this before, I think you need to solve your budget problem by taking all those properties that the county has foreclosed on and start having quarterly deed sales until the county is no longer in the business of holding properties. Because if you get all of those properties back on the property tax roll and paying taxes, those people will improve those properties. They will pay more taxes. You will start to solve some of your budget problems. You say, oh, but we need new revenue streams. Well, you're sitting there looking at a revenue stream and you only hold a deed sale once a year. So step it up. You know, the other issue that you probably have to deal with the deed sales would be the fact that there was a Supreme Court case that says that the sales cannot exceed, like you can't sell off somebody's property for $30,000 if they only owed $2,000 in back taxes. You have to pay them the difference. But regardless, you need to start looking at things. You can go to a 4-day, 10-hour work week, stay open later for the working people to come and do their business here at the county, and you can shut the air conditioning off 1 day a week or turn the air conditioning down. I think that's what they do in La Paz County. I think they have 410s. But, you know, the idea that 80-something% is mandated, I think as Supervisor Gould pointed out, entire departments aren't mandated. There's line item stuff. Obviously, the bulletproof glass was a shining example of that. And I know that Chairman Lingenfelter had mentioned at the Republican meeting that there had been a more rigorous work session in the past, going department, budget. I think you need to keep doing that. It's not that you couldn't see the inflation coming. I think anybody who saw the incoming administration could see that we would potentially have inflationary problems and budgetary concerns. I just think that you guys need to really sit down and do, as Supervisor Gould said, and have a knockdown, drag out, Senate type budget work session, which nobody else seemed to be excited about doing. I think you owe that to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to provide public comment on item number 35? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item number 35. Item number 36, sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mojave County Flood Control District, discussion and possible action regarding adopt the Mojave County Flood Control District tax rate of 0.5000 per 100 assessed value and levy of $10,281,938 for fiscal year 23-24.
Luke? Good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter, board members. There's just a couple things I wanted to point out on this. As you've read, this is the same levy rate that's been in place since 2000. I just want to remind the board that if there is any discussion about adopting a different rate, such as the truth in taxation rate, that the cities and towns do receive about half of this levy and a distribution each year. And so, you know, the cities of Havasu and Kingman and Bullhead City and Colorado City, they all have flood control projects programmed in their 5-year plans that rely on these funds. So any change in the levy rate that decreases the amount of funds generated by this levy will impact those cities and towns.
Thank you. Discussion from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Luke, what was last year's levy?
Give me 1 second here.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Johnson.
I believe the levy's been 50 cents since 2000. At that point, each city would come to the board and say, you know, we'd like 35 cents or whatever the amount they wanted, and they came to an agreement. Of course, I don't know if that agreement's ever been updated, but they all wanted it put to the 50-cent mark, and it's never been changed since then, to my knowledge.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Johnson, by levy, I meant the amount of taxes.
Oh, I'm
collected.
sorry.
Thank you, sir.
1 moment.
Thank you.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, last year's flood control levy, the dollar amount of that was $10,170,637.
Thank you. So we program inflation into flood control projects. So we're making an assumption that real estate values are going to go up, or we're going to adopt a larger levy, and then we program based on that assumption?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, similar to the other ad valorem taxes that are based on the property values, that's what the budget amount is based on, just on those, maintaining the same levy rate and the dollar amount of levy that is generated on that.
But you said there was projects programmed.
Well,
It kind of seems like we're looking out a little further than a year, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I can't speak to the intricacies of how the cities and towns are budgeting, projecting out, but they do rely on the amount of flood control funds that we transfer to them each year towards the end of the fiscal year.
Sure, I would agree. Thank you.
Other comments from the board? Supervisor Bishop.
Chairman Lingenfelter, I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. For that motion and second, any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, this has to be a roll
Oh, I'm
call.
sorry, that's a roll call vote, my bad. Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Gould?
No.
Chairman Lingenfelter?
Yes,
Motion carries 4-1.
thank you. Item number 37, sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mojave County Free Library District, discussion and possible action regarding adoption of the Mojave County Free Library District tax rate of 0.2548 per 100 of assessed value and levy of $6,185,727 for fiscal year 2023-2024. Luke?
Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, this is the same rate as FY23. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Luke, what was last year's levy?
This year's levy is an increase of about $185,000 over last year's levy.
So this year's levy is going to be more than last year's levy?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Entertain discussion or a motion from the board?
Make a motion to approve.
You've heard that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Madam Clerk, would you provide a roll call vote, please?
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
Yes.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Gould?
No.
Chairman Lingenfelter?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Item number 38, sitting as the Board of Directors of the Mojave County Television District, discussion and possible action regarding adoption of the Mojave County Television District tax rate of 0.0536 per 100 of assessed value and levy of $1,366,783 for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Chairman Lingenfelter.
Supervisor Bishop.
I think you transposed some of the numbers there.
Sorry.
The district tax rate of 0.0563.
Thank you.
36.
Thank you very much.
Motion to approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk. Oh, there is actually no roll call on this one. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
As appear to have it, do have it so ordered. Discussion and possible action. Adopt the Holiday Shores Lighting District tax rate of 0.0125 per 100 of assessed value and a levy of $4,941 for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Chairman Lingenfelter, this is in my district, so I will make a motion to approve.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Heard that motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
As appear to have it, do have it so ordered. The Board of Supervisors will now recess from their regular meeting and convene into a special meeting pursuant to ARS 42-17105 to take action to approve by motion and roll call vote the fiscal year 2023-2024 primary property tax levies in accordance with ARS 42 7107 and adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 final budget with modifications as desired. Item 1. Discussion, possible action, approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, property tax levy, and adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 final budget with modifications as desired, and approve the adoption of BOS resolution number 2023-121, thereby adopting the fiscal year 24 property tax levies and final budget with any applicable modifications. Luke?
Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, I do want to just point out a couple of modifications to the budget since the tentative budget was adopted. We have received notice from the Department of Revenue that their previous they've downgraded their previous revenue projections by $70,000 for fiscal 24 for the county. It doesn't seem like a big decrease at face value, but our preliminary budget was originally predicated on numbers that we received from CSA in April, and those numbers were about $38.4 million for state shared tax revenue. We had budgeted rather conservatively at $37,750,000. The $70,000 decrease that DOR is now expecting is $70,000 below that conservative estimate. So I just want to point that out. It's different from the last 3 or 4 years where we've had revenue projections and then you get to the end of the year and revenue is actually higher than what was projected at the state level. This is the first time probably in at least 5 years where we've received word from the state that they're pulling back on their revenue projections. So it is hopefully not indicative of a long-term trend or anything like that, but I did want to make the board aware of that. Other adjustments, modifications that we've made to the budget, item 26 that was on the consent agenda this morning, we've already incorporated into the budget, and that was some good news that the county attorney's office was receiving more in the way of grant funding for their VOCA grant. And so that is a decrease to the general fund transfer. So the general fund will be transferring about $136,000 less to the county attorney's office due to that increase in funding. And then there's some small ins and outs, just a reorganization of some of the line items for the Kingman Constable's budget. We do have some modifications that are not included in the budget at this point, and this is mostly due to the sheriff search and rescue. There was an oversight. The state appropriated up to $525,000 worth of funding for the state's for the sheriff's search and rescue, and so we're including that here. We're just reducing the amount of unawarded funds. There's also some minor adjustments in there for some of the District 1 and District 5 ARPA funds. Similarly, it's adjusting the amounts in those budgets. And that is it in the way of modifications and adjustments. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Luke. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Luke, what's this year's levy?
This year's levy is about $1.25 million more than last year. So that truth and taxation rate of 1.7027 would generate 41.3 million roughly, and the proposed levy rate of 1.7547 will generate a levy of about 42.6 million.
So 42.6 million. What was last year's levy?
41.3 million.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Angus.
Thank you. Yeah, the truth and taxation number, over the years, we have voted to go to the truth in taxation rate. And some may argue that's one of the reasons we're in some of the pickle that we're in. So when I first started, we were at $1.96. Today we're at $1.75. Of course, your values have gone up, but it was still, that's what makes us the third lowest taxed in the state. But this year, I'm not going to support the truth in taxation because of all the things that we've been talking about, because of inflation. I mean, that really is all it comes down to is inflation. And if that could help just a bit with that extra, 5 cents on it, I'm okay with that this year. Again, we'll see what happens. That's why we budget every year, and we'll see. Hopefully next year will be better. It's not looking that way, but hope springs eternal. And I just wanted to make that explanation of my vote.
Thank you. Other supervisors? Supervisor Bishop?
I just wanted to say that I was really pleased to see the state pitch in $525,000 to our search and rescue folks here in Mojave County. They work without pay, and hopefully this budgeted amount will help provide some equipment and resources that search and rescue hasn't had before. So Sheriff Schuster, if you could make that happen, I'm sure the volunteers would be happy. With that, I'll make a motion that we approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 property tax levy and adopt the fiscal year final budget with modifications as described, and approve the adoption of resolution number 2023-121, thereby adopting the fiscal year 2023-24 property tax levy and final budget.
Second.
Luke.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Johnson?
okay with Supervisor Bishop, I have some questions.
Certainly.
Additional
My
discussion? Yes,
apologies.
and we also have a couple people that have signed up to speak, but Supervisor Johnson, go ahead.
Oh, well, if you have other people want to speak, I'll wait.
Sure. Mr. Randy Perry? Randy Perry? No? And Terry Shores?
Thank you. My name is Terry Shores. I just want to say I'm opposed to the tax increase for property taxes. Again, I agree with Hillary due to inflation. Everybody is out here struggling with their budget, and I think if you reevaluate your budget and not do the increase this year, maybe reassess it in 2025. Hopefully we'll get over this hump, and the economy would be better at that point. I'm just
Thank you,
saying,
ma'am.
I'm
Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you. Finance Director? Just so I'm clear again, you're going into this tentative budget with the $1.75. I'm speaking as loud as I'm speaking. You're going into this budget, and at the end of the year, going into next year, this year we have 15 million in contingency.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Johnson, that's correct.
Next year, this is obviously tentative and proposed, we will only have 1 million in contingency.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Johnson, give me just a second here.
I'm reading off your numbers.
Then that would be correct. We are projecting that there will be a significant deficit heading into fiscal 25, roughly 18 million, depending on where final expenses come in at the end of fiscal 24. And so in order to balance the budget next year, absent any new or additional revenue streams, we would need to reduce the contingency amount down to almost nothing.
And like you said, that'll put it down to almost nothing, and we'll be 18 and a half in the hole. And continuing with that, in 26, is it possible that the state would be taking us over?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Johnson, I'm not actually sure on what the process is for that, but there is certainly the possibility that at some point during fiscal 26, the county would be insolvent.
Thank you, Mr. Director. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other discussion? So this budget is balanced, as Supervisor Johnson has said, and as we've had at least 2 very long discussions previously, there's more work to be done. Some of the most important work that this board can do. This time next year, it's not going to be a great situation if we don't do anything. And so as the chairman, I'm committed, and we're going to be I'm working with the county manager's office, having special sessions to have some sort of a Senate-style budget, as Supervisor Gould talked about, and everybody can come with their ideas and we can hash it out, and that's what governance is. If you have individuals with differing viewpoints, you come around the table, you bring your numbers, you bring your ideas, and it's a negotiation, and everybody gets something. You probably don't get everything that you want, but at the end of the day, hopefully you come up with something that everybody can live with. And so hopefully we'll get there within the next year, because it's not a great situation next year, this time. Roll call vote, please.
Do we have a second?
We did have a second.
Thank you.
Supervisor Angus?
Yes.
Supervisor Johnson?
No.
Supervisor Bishop?
Yes.
Supervisor Gould?
No.
Chairman Lingenfelter?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn from the special meeting and resume the regular meeting. Item number 40, Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a constituent that wanted to discuss our ordinance 2016-116, which gives permission for property owners to grade the property on the way, grade roads on the way to their property. So I put this on the agenda so that he could share that with you all.
Is that Arlo Cox?
It is.
Arlo Cox, you want to come down to the podium, please, for your 3 minutes? Thank you.
For the record, I'm Arlo Cox. I live in Lake Havasu. And yes, I wanted to discuss, at least get the opinion on your resolution 2016-116. It states in here numerous times, and I've also looked at the one that was previous to it, which was 99-419, that the intent is to allow citizens to improve or grade the access to their property or the road right of way. And it says it over and over until you get to one special spot over here. I highlighted it in red. We'll put it up. It says you can't change anything. It means that if you can't change the elevation or the width of the road, and you can't change the disturbed area, anytime you start to maintain a road, you will grade it. You're changing the elevation, and as the staff has come up, that all roads will need a permit before you can do it. You bring this resolution, and they tell me this doesn't count. So that's why I'm asking the board, is that really your opinion? Was it a mistake when they put this in, or is it an interpretation mistake? It's that simple.
Thank you, sir. Bringing Director Latosky up.
Yeah, let's bring Director Latosky up and have him explain his interpretation of it.
Good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, Supervisor Gould. Yes, we, with the board's support, enacted Resolution 2016-116 for the purpose of enabling residents and property owners to grade county dedicated or granted rights-of-ways that are not otherwise maintained or only tertiary maintained. So with regard to the, call it exceptions, if you will, this really speaks to really altering the profile of the road, the vertical profile, the horizontal profile, getting beyond the pre-existing disturbed area. There is one caveat that this resolution does not necessarily apply, and that would be rights-of-ways that are assigned under a BLM right-of-way assignment. BLM actually has additional layers of restrictions by which even Mojave County can only maintain the road to. So going outside, say, pre-existing or pre-disturbed areas would require us to re-engage BLM and ensure that we have their approval. That doesn't pertain to too many roadways, but certainly a subset of the roadways that if work was going to be going on outside the pre-disturbed area. But again, I do want to, as a gentleman, Mr. Cox pointed out, yes, the practice of roadway grading is going to alter the elevation ever so slightly, but the intent of the resolution was really to not permit substantial changes to the profile or curve, the geometric alignment, if you will. Then we would ask a permit process be initiated so that Public Works would have the opportunity to review the intended plans for that roadway.
Mr. Cox, why don't you come back up and state let's talk about your particular issue.
Well, my particular issue, I've been there since 2010, been maintaining the road. There's been no maintenance from the county. The road was assigned from the BLM in '99. When I first started, we were turned in that we were on the BLM without a permit. County come out, BLM come out, both denied that it was there. I had to go through title insurance to figure out that this was my access, showed the county that you had a permit from the BLM. And it says, it's funny because the way the BLM is, it doesn't have a point of beginning, point of end. It says the disturbed area is where the easement is, and it's 75 feet wide. And they want to keep the road surface area or driving area 30 feet. If you take the interpretation that the 30 feet is ditches, everything, that's one way. I've worked with the BLM, graded, like I say, for about 10, 11 years, and then was told because somebody complained that we blocked the road, which you kind of do when it gets washed out. Sometimes you fill in an area which can be 2 to 3 foot. I mean, you get one of the floods come through, we do that. As we've been grading it, it started as probably about a 12-foot, 13-foot wide road. It's now up to averages at 22 feet. And we are changing the profile of the road. Not real quick, but we're changing it over time. And as you know, we're not doing it at any cost to the county. I think this resolution, if you read the first page without their caveats in this part, we're doing exactly what you want. It hasn't cost the county anything. All the neighbors are in agreement with it. And I don't know what we've really done that much different to all of a sudden to be told stop and you can't do this anymore and let our roads fall apart that I grade it 4 to 5 times a year, which is considerably more than your tertiary maintenance that is in the subdivision just in front of us. And those neighbors are a little offended that we're getting it. Most of the people think you're paying me to do it, which has not been done. So I'm just asking to do this because coming in, I've already done a plan, gave it to them, and they said it didn't meet the county road standards. Well, we're trying to improve the road, not maybe to county standards, just so that we can keep it smooth and drive to it. If we take it to the county standard, it will have to be bigger than what the BLM would allow, which means we'd have to stop and wait for the BLM to make a change and get through. BLM has been out there. I've got another easement because the county didn't have one to go further north on that same section. Took me 5 years to get that BLM permit. We're going to try to improve that too so other people can get on out there. If you go in and have the engineers, I spend as much money with the engineers as it does take me to get the road fixed. We've already spent $12,000 on this one that has been denied because we don't meet the county standard.
Chairman Lincolnfelter.
Supervisor Bishop.
I might have missed it, but what location is this? Probably District 5, but
Do you know where that is?
I do.
Okay, if you go through Havasu Heights, it would be directly south. Where Skyview comes through Havasu Heights, it turns into dirt. And I didn't bring my map to say which section it in, but it's Skyview that then transitions through BLM, comes over to Rancho Vista, and ran up, and that was put in there basically to put the tower up on Ram Peak.
Okay, I just missed the location. You
No
might have
problem.
said that,
Happy
but
to answer any other questions, if there are.
Mr. Chairman.
Manager Elders.
I guess as the county manager and also the county engineer. Let me jump in and perhaps add some thoughts here and clarity. We have many roads in Mojave County where the road exists without adequate or proper right-of-way over the years, or we have easements and or right-of-way set aside and no graded road or no built road, or if there is one, it's just been maintained over the years, but not built to any standards. I think that it's important to point out when we talk about road grading to make a road passable to provide access to a property owner, we're talking about smoothing it back and forth with minimal effort and no significant grade change, compacting with whatever equipment is possible just to make it passable. That is just a standard practice to provide access on a road that is not built to any standards. When we talk about standards, Mojave County does have standards. They have been in place for many years, and they are for local residential roads. They're there for collector, they're there for arterials, and they're also there for county highway. Normally, when we built them to county standards, that involves engineering that covers both the horizontal alignment of the roadway and the vertical alignment to ensure that appropriate sight distance is adequate, as well as drainage to ensure that drainage conveyances are in place, they've been analyzed, and it's constructed to those standards. It seems here what we have with Mr. Cox, we're talking about property that is owned by the federal government and under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Land Management. In those situations, whether it's a property owner needing access to property or whether it's the county, we have had, just for the record, roads over the years graded and maintained, just maintained, meaning graded back and forth and made passable that are part of the county road system, and where we've needed to come in and widen them, if it was a county highway or for any other reason, after it was approved by the board and funding was set aside for it, we had to go through BLM and get environmental clearance. That is required of any agency on any given day these days and has been in place for many years to get environmental clearance. And there are various layers of that. You can get it through categorical exclusion, which is a CE, it's the lower level. You can get it through an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement. But those BLM will require those whether it's Mojave County or not. So my suggestion to Mr. Cox, to the property owner or any property owner, if you want to maintain access, do so within those guidelines so you can use it. But if you intend to change grades and widen it, then you have to meet those standards that have been established by the board over the years, whether it's public land or not. And I hope that helps, because that is what we have had as a practice for all these years.
I've got a follow-up question. Thank you for that, Manager Elters. How are property owners that use such roadways as this gentleman supposed to mitigate and repair storm flows that flow over these roads, right? Because if they're just allowed to smooth gently back and forth, sometimes the rains that we see, I mean, they erode roadways in our rural areas. So how are they supposed to
Mr. Chairman, we would recommend they do what the county does. We have many miles of county roads that are unimproved, county highways that are unimproved. We grade them in place, and when we experience heavy rainfall and runoff that erodes the surface longitudinally or diagonally, we go back in and use a motor grader to smooth it out so it's passable. I'm sorry. It's a practice that we do and have been doing, and until the road is improved, meaning you have constructed surface that receives hardened driving surface such as asphalt or concrete. That's what, that is the practice. We don't have the means to improve every county roads out there, and not all of them are suitable for that. So that's what we do today, and we do it all over the county.
You're right. I mean, Mojave County has a lot of roads that are just, they're not designed. They just lay light on the land, right? They just flow over the contour of the land. So, I mean, is that kind of what we're talking about here? You're not...
Yes, and I will highlight, if you put this on here, in all of your statements, everyone on 99-419 and 206-16 says you can improve, not just maintain. It says you can improve and maintain. If you come in where I started with this road at the very beginning, had 4-foot ruts into it from where the water had washed across, we're darting around, you'd have the road one place 20 feet wide, and then it would narrow down to about 10 or 12. We've got it now up to 22 because we just progressively make it a little bigger. If we had to come in one day and say, okay, we now have to meet the county standard, which they've determined this is a collector standard, we have to put a road in, which I build roads, 24-foot roads, 2 8-foot shoulders, and a ditch section. The cost of me bringing it to a 22 compared to blowing it out to a full county road at my expense, why is it going that we can't just kind of improve to where we get a reasonable road to our property, which I think was your intent, rather than jump to the county standard, which is going to cost a couple $100,000 as opposed to 20 or 30,000. And to make a road, if it's on a side hill, that gets you erosion. To lower it, if it's running a 2%, just a straight 2% on a road and it's 24-foot wide, you've got to lower one side about 4 or 5 inches. That's not minor. You cut it out here, you put it over there. You've been building roads a long time. If you see a little hump, you might take a foot or two out, but you substantially have not changed the road. And if you stay within the alignment of the road and the easement will stop you from going too much to an excess if you keep the standard of a 3-to-1 slope on the shoulders. All of this is done by the homeowners, not by the county. We're not requesting maintenance. We're not asking for approval. We're wanting to keep our road open for us at our expense.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Gould.
It seems, the problem seems to be the interpretation of this road, existing road to go to a few people's property and the county interpreting it as a county standard arterial road. I don't think you have the width to even do that on the BLM easement that you've obtained, Mr. Cox.
That is correct. We only have 30 feet. We can't meet the standard. It will have to be changed. They actually asked me to go do it, and they got a letter back from the BLM, which I've worked with the BLM because I couldn't have got the easements without working with them. They've approved what I've done because I'm helping get access out a little further out. I granted it on both sides because when I fixed the road to my house, everybody wants to drive through it to get to their property. And I said, look, I'll work to put it on the 2 perimeters of the section, which I've been granted the permits, that we can build those roads to where people can access their property. It does not go to all my property. I've had to work with all the neighbors, but it takes time. We'll get the roads up to where they can get access to it, but it starts without even a road. I have permission from the BLM to do it, and I've had it in the past. It's the county that has come up and said, you can't do it. Like I say, I've been doing it for 10, 12 years, and now I've been shut down.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure of the board.
I don't know how we clarify this, but it's, as Mr. Cox said, it said that you could improve the road, which seems a little different than dragging a harrow down the road to smooth the existing road. It seems like improve means more than just that. So I don't know if we have to make a clarifying interpretation of this, or do we tell staff the meaning of the word improve?
Well,
I don't know how to
sir.
proceed.
Mr.
there's
Chairman.
only one little paragraph in here that's really different between 2000, or from 99 to 2016. And it's one I've highlighted and read that puts in your alignment and elevation. If you take the interpretation, if you just remove the word elevation, that takes the teeth out of the county. You've changed it 8 inches. That's too much. If you take the alignment of the road, which I understand, this elevation thing, anybody, if I want to interpret it really hard as the county, you can't move it an inch. If I'm going to be loose on it, you can't move it more than 10 feet. That's an interpretation that takes away from saying you can to saying you have to ask the county, what can you do?
Thank you. Manager Elders.
Mr. Chairman, it concerns me that we're talking about interpretation. This is not about interpretation. There's standard grading operation where we grade a roadway in its current conditions. And then there's improvements where you change its conditions both horizontally and vertically. My concern is, as long as the county is involved, this easement was granted to the county and the county has oversight of it, then we have liability and risk associated with that. And if the road is to be improved, there is standard engineering practices that are used for that. We really cannot get in different standards here and different standards there. An engineered roadway meets those design standards and construction standards, and an unimproved roadway is just that. It's graded to be passable and provide access. So I really I'm concerned when we start talking about different standards and maybe just widening it a little bit here, removing a foot or two. You remove a foot or two, you can change the drainage and put them in a different direction altogether. That has associated and long-term implications because you're redirecting flows. We understand as engineers what the word improvement is and what the word standard grading and maintenance operation is. It's either or, and you improve roadway, you improve it to a given set of standards, not just arbitrarily removing some and excavating here and there. It just concerns me from a risk and liability perspective for the county.
Thank you. Manager Elders, am I correct in hearing, did I hear that the BLM, this road goes through BLM property, is that correct, sir? And that the BLM provided the right of way to the county or to private citizens?
Mr. Chairman, we have many roads and miles
This one
out
in
there.
particular.
No, I'm with you, but yes, we have a lot of roads that travel across public land, federal land, either Bureau of Land Management administered or somebody else, and then we get easement for the county to have oversight of them. And this is one of them. So in order for any improvements to take place, even though it's not maintained by the county, just it is under the county oversight, any improvement to it could be interpreted by a court as an improvement with the county being involved. We can't just not issue a permit for the work because it is under county jurisdiction. And we cannot issue a permit that is for work that is not standard work.
Wasn't asking for a permit. I believe that we came in and told him he needed a permit.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Gould, my point is it's an easement that is from the public land to the county. We have oversight of it. So technically, he could not and should not be doing anything to it without a permit. And what I'm saying to you is a permit could be two folds. A permit to grade, keep it in its current natural condition and grade it to make it passable and not make it any wider. You can go from 20 to 60 feet in a couple of years if you keep widening. And there's, I cited an experience or an example to you where we, the county, were prevented from doing that without environmental clearance, proper environmental clearance. Or you can come in and get a permit to improve it, have it engineered, all the clearances in place, you construct it like all the other roads in the county, and then it is built to county standards.
Mr. Chairman, County Manager Elders, we've already given people the permission to, in 2016-116, to improve and maintain those roads.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Gould, I guess I'm stating to you that the intent of the resolution was to maintain in natural conditions, not to improve and change and alter the vertical and the horizontal alignment of a roadway, because with that, there is an implication to drainage and changing direction of flows within an easement and or right of way.
But that's not what the ordinance says, though.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Johnson.
My understanding of what the engineer is saying is that if somebody wants to drag it and keep it smooth, that's fine. Improvement means if you're going to improve, you improve it to the next level, which is, whatever, one of these fancy words that he used, as far as, like when we take roads in, we have tertiary and then we go up in standards. I think that's what he's saying, while Mr. Guthrie is saying, I just want to improve it to make it smoother and better. I think our engineer is saying, no, if you're going to improve it, you improve it to the next standard of road surface that we have. I think that's correct.
But that's still not what the ordinance says.
Maybe we just need to send it back and then have them put that in there. Because we put this ordinance in to make it easier for the people and not harder. And
My point.
Supervisor Gould, would you be amenable to maybe postponing this item to our next agenda or something?
Sure.
I'd like a little more time to actually look into this.
Sure, that would be acceptable.
Do we need a motion on that, or you just?
Motion to continue to the next meeting.
I'll second that. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Do have it so ordered. Item number 41.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you. This item is in regards to ARPA funds being provided for the GVID district. But, I just wanted to make the community understand that water readiness and system availability, reliability for the GVID customers has been and continues to be a priority for me and I think all the directors here for GVID. Unfortunately, the water district had 2 well reductions, and in response to that, I allocated over $750,000 in District 4 ARPA funds in 2021, and that was to build a new well, which they referred to as well number 3. So in 2020, the county entered into an agreement with KP Ventures for the drilling of that well, but unfortunately there were issues, and in 2022, the county needed to cancel that contract because the well was not completed. So I'm now requesting that an additional $763,000 of District 4 ARPA money be allocated to a new well. With the previous District 4 ARPA funds and GVID funds, with this approval, there will now be over $1.95 million allocated toward the construction of a new well for GVID customers. So again, I just wanted to remind everyone that the water readiness and system reliability for GVID customers continues to be a top priority for me, and I request that this board approve the allocation of ARPA funds as requested.
Thank you. We have 3 individuals that have signed up to speak on this item. First is Danielle Olikek.
Thank you, Chairman and Board of Supervisors, Danielle Olikek. I am in favor of allocating the additional funds for the well to be drilled in Golden Valley, but I did have a couple questions, which kind of go hand in hand with the water rate increase. So it applies to this. I don't want to get cut off, but the questions I have, which I did email each one of you directly to, so if you would like to reply, please do. But I was wondering if the board had asked GVID about when they're going to make the decision for the 3 possible plans in regards to drilling the new well. What are the most important factors GVID is considering in their decision process making of choosing that plan of action? Is there an expiration date on the ARPA funds if they're not allocated? And do they need to be used before that date? That one's really important to me. If anybody knows that answer.
So Chairman Lingenfelter, I can address some of those.
Please do.
Pause my timer.
I don't have any control over that, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the latter question is the use of the ARPA funds. The ARPA funds have to be allocated by December 31st of 2024 and used by December 31st of 2026. Correct? Yes. So that addresses that question. I don't remember the other ones, but I believe
That was the main one that I wanted answered today. And then is GVID going to wait to make their decision on a plan of action for drilling the well after the current lawsuit with KP Ventures is settled? If the additional ARPA funds are approved towards building a new well and GVID chooses the $1.9 million budget, would the $250,000 shortfall be funded with the current well surcharge revenue? From my public records request, GVID generated $48,815.64 during the May to June 15th billing cycle. So do you think GVID should be able to generate the $250,000 shortfall in the next 6 months if there is a shortfall? So if we believe that they can, why can't we put an end date on the surcharge? And if GVID chooses a less expensive plan for drilling the well, what will happen to the remaining ARPA funds and surcharges that were generated? That question I'd like an answer to as well is how do the remaining funds, where do they go?
Chairman Lingenfelter, if you'd like, I'd be happy to meet with you right after this meeting.
Yeah,
I can
would you?
try to address some of these.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can address all of them, but I'll try my best to meet with you.
Okay, that would be great. And I just want to thank you for your efforts to keep GVID functioning with transparency, honesty, and integrity for the people they were designed to serve. I will be submitting another records request for the June to July billing period, to help keep track of the funds being generated with the well surcharges. And I encourage you to keep track too. And I look forward to getting those answers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Jennifer Esposito.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry. Supervisor Bishop.
Yes, Danielle. I just wanted to thank you for those well thought out questions that you emailed to all the board members. And I apologize for last night's email to you where I thought you were talking about the solar instead of the water. But these questions that you're asking, I provided to the deputy county attorney because there is litigation going on currently. And some of these questions may need to be answered by the attorney rather than the Board of Supervisors or the district members of GVID. So I'm sure you understand that. I just wanted to let you know that sometimes things get a little complicated in the political world and the legal world. So it's not that you're being ignored, it's that maybe some questions need to be cautiously answered.
Thank you. And I just do want to make a point that with the expiration of dates and that being tied up and GVID being tied up in litigation, that does really put a sense of urgency from my perspective that if they could expire, we need to get those allocated correctly, and we need to get a plan of action so that way we can get that handled in time for for us in Golden Valley, you know. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Esposito?
Thank you. Jennifer Esposito, property owner in the Golden Valley Improvement District. As Supervisor Bishop pointed out, a lot of this has to do with the issues with KP Ventures. And, you know, originally this well was bid at a contract of about $408,000 and some change. And then we went to reallocating money that apparently you didn't pay KP Ventures, is my understanding. This is about $250,000 that you didn't pay them. And for all intents and purposes, it was not their fault. I've seen no evidence to the contrary. I've reviewed all the legal documents. The problem with the well failure is the county set the standard for the contract, and the county didn't have an engineer. And then the person who approved the materials and the engineering specs was also the person who inspected the well collapse after the county gave permission, or the engineer, project supervisor,
Mr.
whatever,
Chairman, point of order.
gave the permission to.
Yes, this is about ARPA funds.
Yes,
being
I'm in favor of the ARPA
allocated.
funds, but I'm telling you why I'm in favor of the ARPA funds. Because you've turned this thing, you had the person who approved everything inspect themselves and say, we did nothing wrong, therefore it's the other guy. Now you're trying to force KP Ventures to drill you a well for free by going after the bond on their contract. All of this is creating a mess and is dragging the
I'm
time
going to ask
out.
you to narrow your comments just to the,
Okay, the ARPA funds are going to expire. The problem that you have is that no one wants to work for you because you have a bad reputation for not paying. As was stated in court, the excuse people, oh, we're busy, we're reaching out to people, but they're busy. No, they don't want to work for you. I mean, any reasonable person would come to that conclusion. You absolutely need to allocate these ARPA funds. But I can tell you, as somebody who is the vice president of an oil and gas development company who knows a thing or two about drilling wells and what they cost, when you take a project that's $408,000 and you come back and you say just in December, okay, now it's 1.5 million. Okay, now in May 1st it's 3 million. Okay, we have 3 locations. We don't know where we want to drill. We have nobody who wants to drill for us.
I need to ask you to stay on the agendized item. This is an ARPA allocation.
Yes, and what I'm
We're
trying
not
to
talking about the procurement of it. We're not talking about
Okay, and you're using my time. So I'm trying to get to the point of you're allocating, let's say, $1.7 million, and you have 3 different projects that have to be done and should be done, and you need a plan to get them done. I am 100% in favor of this, as I was of the grant funding, because the people of this district should not be put on the hook for the failures of the staff that we pay for their salaries and
Mr.
benefits.
Chairman, I rescind my offer of ARPA funds at this time.
Well, that just goes to show whose fault it is. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
For that motion and second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? As appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. We are adjourned.